What is up, everyone? Today, boom, huge, thick Priory of the Orange Tree. Huge standalone, definitely the biggest standalone that I've read. I buddy read this with Casey over at the End Pages, so I will link her channel as well. Oh, and this is by Samantha Shannon. And this is the first thing of hers that I've read, so what did I think? Well, quick synopsis. So this book basically takes place on two continents, the Eastern continent and the Western continent. And these two continents have a lot of political tension between them. They basically don't trade almost at all, and they don't talk to each other or have any sort of diplomacy for various reasons that we explore, but the biggest reason is their thoughts on dragons. In the Eastern continent, we follow a character named Tane, who is about to graduate from dragon school, and she has this sort of connection with dragons. The East, respects and worships, to one extent or another, dragons, and the Eastern dragons are seen as like gentle giants, kind of, but also very powerful, and they're just generally respected within the culture. And Tane, being connected and being in this dragon school, that would make her very respected and powerful in various ways. Also, we follow a person named Dr. Ruse in the East. He was actually in the West, but he was exiled to the East, and we find him at this Eastern trading post. And this trading post is unique because it's the only trading post that connects the East and the West. And this doctor doesn't like being exiled from the West. Yeah, he kind of wants to get back. He's kind of like old and grumpy. In this trading post, it's tough for him because he's like a Westerner, so he can't go into the East, but he's also exiled from the West, so he's like stuck in this fairly small like trading post. And, he's very grumpy about that. So we kind of explore his journey of kind of getting out. I guess that's his biggest goal. And yeah, let's talk about the West. The West was a lot more interesting to me. First, we have to make the distinction between the Northwest, which is where we begin the book and where a lot of things happen in the book, and the Southwest. So we follow a character named Ied, and Ied is from the Southwest, but she is part of like the Queen's court in the Northwest, and she's been there for like 8 years. She's kind of sort of trying to ingratiate herself into the Queen's court and kind of work her way up, sort of, and she's there as just a general diplomat, or so we think. But soon we find out that her task is actually to defend Queen Sabran's life, because prophecy, religion, whatever. And basically, even though the Southwest is very different religiously, culturally, and in a lot of ways from the Northwest, the Southwest religion, prophecy, whatever, doesn't want the queen to die. And we get very into the weeds with the differences in their religion. I thought of it kind of as the difference between like Christianity and like Judaism and Islam. Like we're all worshiping the same God, but like, there's definitely religious tensions, obviously. You guys know this. And, of course, cultural differences as well. And the West does not like dragons. Their religion really sees the dragons as, like, kind of like a force of evil that will come back and, like, take over and kill everyone and just do bad things and, like, rule them, and I don't know. So I would say that the Northwest, Innis, the queendom, that is kind of like the focal point of the book, because their cultural differences with the Southwest are explored and their cultural differences with the East are explored. But to explore these cultural differences, we first have to define the culture, and then we can, talk about the differences and how that affects the way these different cultures see each other, which is a great transition into talking about the pacing in this book. The defining the cultures early on made the start of the book feel slow. I don't really mind info dumps, and this book definitely has a lot of info dumping early on, and they're overall important, but I think they could have been shortened. A lot of them were incorporated fairly naturally, but I don't know. There's one that sticks out in my head, like an info dump, where early on, the Queen of Innis asks Ied to describe what the true religion is to the Northwest Innis people. And then Iad like describes their like whole religious story or whatever, and she's like verbalizing that, but then in her head it's just like an inner monologue of, actually, this isn't really what is happening in actual whatever folklore, religion, stories, whatever. And it was just so weird. It's like, pop quiz, like, tell me about your religion. So that was weird. But overall, I liked the culture stuff in the West. The East, I liked a lot less, albeit the Eastern parts probably took up less time. I didn't do the math on the pages or anything, but the groundwork that is laid in the East is less important for the story, I think. The situations of the characters in the East change a lot. I know I said the term dragon school earlier, and some people might be like, oh, that's so cool. This is a good example of situations changing in this book. We start in dragon school, and we're in dragon school for a decent amount of the book. Maybe like, I don't want to say how much, but it's an amount of the book that we're in the dragon school. But then we just like leave it behind somewhat quickly. And it's like, why did we get like all this dragon school groundwork being laid when it wasn't like too important to the story? Which brings me to what I felt like was almost the biggest problem with the pacing of this book. The inciting incident happened very late. Like, again, I felt like the main story was the West, and very little happens in the West. You could argue that the inciting incident is like the assassination that you read about in the first page of the Western part, or, you know, the attempted assassination, I guess. But I felt like the real inciting incident came, you know, maybe like 100 pages into the book. As I was reading the book, I was thinking to myself, is there a reason this story picked up at this point rather than, you know, like 10 years before or 10 years after, or like, why are we here in this moment right now? And basically what I'm saying is, I feel like the story started too early within the timeline of this world. And I know Casey said in her wrap up that she thought the beginning was too slow as well. And then the difference between the speed in the beginning and, you know, like the second half or like final third of the book is just so different, because later on in the book, things happen so quickly. And she said she wanted to like spend more time in particular moments. And I completely agree. Like, and yeah, I felt like with the amount of groundwork laid, the payoff wasn't big enough, even though I liked the things in the plot that happened towards the end of this book. And I liked how everything came together. And yeah, I definitely don't have issues with the plot in the second half of this book. It was just a different pacing in the same book, I guess, which was a little weird. Now, let's talk about the characters. The characters in the East, I don't know. I didn't care about too much. Dr. Ruse, he's kind of like funny in his grumpiness, but I don't know. Whatever. Maybe I just didn't care about his plot, so I didn't care about him. And then Tane was okay as well. Loth, I haven't even mentioned Loth, but him and Kit feel like the most real people that we meet, and I sometimes like that sort of more neutral presence to explore like a very vast world with, because, you know, he's like, you know, morally pretty good and just relatable overall. And Iad, I really liked Iad in the West. Maybe that's why I liked the plot of the West a lot more than the East. And this book is all about, you know, people going from one culture to another culture and just maybe a bit of culture shock in some cases. Iad, I feel like, handled it in both a way that was natural and a way that was probably like the most relatable for me. And it was interesting to watch her struggle with kind of her beliefs, values, and faith as she's kind of learning about this new world. And I also like watching her struggle through like the court politics of, you know, the queendom of Innis. But yeah, overall, I'd say this is like 3-star book for me. The West, I give 4 stars to, and the second half of this book I give 4 stars to. The East I give 2 stars to, and the first half of this book I give 2 stars to. So overall, we've got a 3-star book. That is Math with Greg. So yeah, basically, I don't know. Do I recommend this? Yeah, I think people might like this. I don't know. It is long though. If you're watching this somehow and you're like halfway through the book, I don't know, just like go through it unless you're like really hating it. But if you're on the fence, I don't know. I feel like it gets better. There's some payoff. There's so much groundwork laid that there better be payoff. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you thought of this book. This is like the most average review ever, maybe. Well, I don't know. It's not too average because I'm pretty clear about the parts of this book that I really like and then the parts that I don't like. So I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, see you guys next time.